Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Today is the International Human Rights Day, and I'm here at the number 10 Downing Street, the Prime Minister's residence. And today we're going to deliver the Kesri Lehar petition to the Prime Minister's office. And let's go and speak to the campaigners who have come all across the country today to deliver this important petition at number 10 Downing Street.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਸਾਰੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਪੰਥ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਦਾ ਇਜ਼ਹਾਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਆਪਣਾ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਕੇਸਰੀ ਲਹਿਰ ਦੀ ਪਟੀਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਨੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੀ ਪੱਧਰ ਤੇ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਪਾਇਆ। ਅਸੀਂ ਮੋٹے ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਜੋ ਅੱਜ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਹਨ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੁੱਦਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਂ, ਉਹ ਆਪ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਦੀ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਅਬੋਲਿਸ਼ ਦਾ ਡੈਥ ਪੈਨਲਟੀ ਐਂਡ ਜੋਇਨ ਦਾ ਸਿਵਲਾਈਜ਼ਡ ਵਰਲਡ। ਕਿ ਬਾਕੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿਕਸਿਤ ਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਜ ਮੌਤ ਦੀ ਸਜ਼ਾ, ਫਾਂਸੀ ਦੀ ਸਜ਼ਾ ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਚੁੱਕੀ ਆ, ਅਤੇ ਭਾਰਤ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਸਿਵਲਾਈਜ਼ਡ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਜੁਆਇਨ ਕਰੇ, ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਹਿਮਤ ਹੋਵੇ ਅਤੇ ਭਾਰਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਜੋ ਮੌਤ ਦੀ ਪੈਨਲਟੀ ਆ, ਜੋ ਮੌਤ ਦੀ ਸਜ਼ਾ ਖਤਮ ਹੋਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆ। ਦੂਸਰੀ ਗੱਲ, ਸਟਾਪ ਸ਼ੂਟ ਟੂ ਕਿਲ ਪਾਲਿਸੀਜ਼ ਇਨ ਕਸ਼ਮੀਰ, ਨਾਗਾਲੈਂਡ, ਮਿਜ਼ੋਰਮ, ਤ੍ਰਿਪੁਰਾ, ਮਨੀਪੁਰ, ਮੇਘਾਲਿਆ ਐਂਡ ਅਦਰ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਇਨ ਇੰਡੀਆ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਵੱਧ ਅਧਿਕਾਰ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਖੜਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਗੋਲੀ ਮਾਰ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਆ, ਇਹ ਪਾਲਿਸੀ ਬੰਦ ਹੋਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆ। ਤੀਸਰਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਵਿਦਡਰੋ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਲੋਜ਼ ਐਂਡ ਇੰਪਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਟੂ ਇਟਸ ਆਰਮਡ ਫੋਰਸਿਸ। ਜੋ ਅੱਜ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਘਾਣ ਹੋਇਆ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, CRP ਨੂੰ, ਬਾਰਡਰ ਸਿਕਿਉਰਿਟੀ ਫੋਰਸ ਅਤੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਆਰਮਡ ਫੋਰਸਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਅਧਿਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਕੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਬੰਦ ਹੋਣੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਨੇ, ਉਹ ਮਨੁੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਘਾਣ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਹਨ। ਚੌਥਾ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਹੈ ਜੀ, ਸਟਾਪ ਪ੍ਰੋਸੀਕਿਊਸ਼ਨ ਅਗੇਂਸਟ ਮਾਈਨੋਰਟੀਜ਼ ਐਂਡ ਦਲਿਟਸ। ਅਤੇ ਭਾਰਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਘੱਟ ਗਿਣਤੀਆਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਹੱਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਘਾਣ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ, ਦਲਿਤਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡਾ ਵਿਤਕਰਾ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ, ਮਾਈਨੋਰਟੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡਾ ਵਿਤਕਰਾ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ, ਇਹ ਬੰਦ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ। ਪੰਜਵਾਂ ਹੈ ਜੀ, ਸਟਾਪ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਮਸ ਅਗੇਂਸਟ ਹਿਊਮੈਨਿਟੀ। ਮਨੁੱਖਤਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੋ ਅੱਜ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਘਾਣ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਮਨੁੱਖੀ ਹੱਕਾਂ ਦਾ, ਉਹ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਮ, ਉਹ ਜ਼ੁਲਮ ਬੰਦ ਹੋਣੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਆ। ਛੇਵਾਂ ਹੈ, ਅਲਾਓ ਐਮਨੈਸਟੀ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ, ਹਿਊਮਨ ਰਾਈਟਸ ਵਾਚ। ਜਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਵੀ ਕੌਮਾਂਤਰੀ ਪੱਧਰ 'ਤੇ ਮਨੁੱਖੀ ਅਧਿਕਾਰਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਸੰਸਥਾਵਾਂ ਬਣੀਆਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਦੋਂ 1984 ਦਾ ਹਮਲਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਉਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਬੰਦ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਵਰੇਜ ਵਾਸਤੇ, ਅਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਵੀ ਭਾਰਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੂਰੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਵਿਚਰਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ। ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਮਨੁੱਖੀ ਅਧਿਕਾਰ ਸੰਸਥਾਵਾਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਵੀ ਖੁੱਲ੍ਹ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆ। ਸੱਤਵਾਂ, ਪ੍ਰੋਵਾਈਡ ਜਸਟਿਸ ਐਂਡ ਰੀਡਰੈਸ ਫॉर द विक्टिम ऑफ 1984, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਸੇਕੇਅਰ ਹੋਇਆ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਂ ਬਾਕੀ ਸ਼ਹਿਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਮੂਹਕ, ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖ ਜੈਨੋਸਾਈਡ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ, ਨਸਲਕੁਸ਼ੀ, ਉਹਦੇ ਸਬੰਧ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਅੱਜ ਤੱਕ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਿਆ, ਕਿਸੇ ਇੱਕ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਸਜ਼ਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਈ। ਅਤੇ ਅੱਠਵਾਂ ਹੈ, ਸਾਈਨ ਐਂਡ ਰੈਟੀਫਾਈ UN ਕਨਵੈਨਸ਼ਨਸ। ਜਿਹੜੇ UN ਕਨਵੈਨਸ਼ਨਸ ਹੈ, ਉਹਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਨੁੱਖੀ ਅਧਿਕਾਰਾਂ ਸੰਬੰਧੀ ਦਿਸ਼ਾ ਨਿਰਦੇਸ਼ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਭਾਰਤ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਮੀਟ ਕਰੇ। ਅਤੇ 9ਵਾਂ ਲਾਸਟ, ਡਿਵੈਲਪ ਸਰਪਲਸ ਪਾਵਰ ਟੂ ਸਟੇਟ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਐਜ਼ ਪ੍ਰੋਮਿਸ ਡਿਊਰਿੰਗ ਦਾ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਫਰ ਆਫ ਪਾਵਰ 1947। ਅਤੇ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ 1949 ਜਿਹੜਾ ਯੂਨੀਅਨ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਆਫ ਕਨਸਟੀਟਿਊਸ਼ਨ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦਾ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਸੀ, ਉਹਦੇ ਬਣਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਉਹਦਾ ਖਤਮ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਫੈਡਰਲ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਇੱਕ ਸੈਂਟਰਲ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਬਣਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਅਤੇ ਜਿਸ ਸੰਵਿਧਾਨ 'ਤੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਈਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੇ, ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਸਿੱਖ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦਾ ਮੁੱਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਅਹਿਮ ਮੁੱਦਾ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਮੁੱਦਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਅਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਜੇਲ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਭਾਈ ਬਲਵੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਰਾਜੋਆਣਾ, ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਭੁੱਲਰ, ਭਾਈ ਜਗਤਾਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਹਵਾਰਾ ਅਤੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਅੱਜ ਜੇਲ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੰਦ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਰਿਹਾਈ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਅਤੇ ਫਾਂਸੀ ਦੀ ਸਜ਼ਾ ਖਤਮ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੇ, ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਨੇ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਪਾਇਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵੀ ਧੰਨਵਾਦੀ ਹਾਂ। ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ MPs ਨੇ, MEPs ਨੇ, ਲੋਰਡਸ ਨੇ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਪਾਇਆ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦੀ ਹਾਂ। ਅਤੇ ਸੰਗਤ ਟੀਮ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਸਮੂਹਕ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਹੀ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਦਾ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਜੀ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
ਸਾਡੀ ਕੇਸਰੀ ਲਹਿਰ ਦੀ ਡੈਲੀਗੇਸ਼ਨ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ 10 ਡਾਊਨਿੰਗ ਸਟਰੀਟ ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਕੇਸਰੀ ਲਹਿਰ ਦੀ ਪੈਟੀਸ਼ਨ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਪੀਪਲਸ ਕੰਪੇਨ ਦੇ ਥਰੂ 1,18,000 ਸਿਗਨੇਚਰ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਅੰਦਰ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਸੰਗਤ ਟੈਲੀਵਿਜ਼ਨ 10 ਡਾਊਨਿੰਗ ਸਟਰੀਟ ਲੰਡਨ।
Gents, if you can stand behind here, thank you. So behind here, thank you.
ਇਹਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ The wave for justice is gaining momentum. It's a historic day today, historic movement. It's a wonderful experience. No one can delay justice for years. Justice delayed is justice denied. But justice delayed for 28 years is basically forcing people to accept injustice. Sikhs will never do that. And we will make sure that minorities are represented in India and everywhere in the world.
It's very fuzzy, I'm afraid, that one.
Sorry, can you do the interviews here? So it's block this flat.
And it wouldn't focus.
Thank you very much.
That's all right.
Thank you, John.
And all come together.
Congratulations.
Okay.
Just few words for the
Okay.
media, please.
Today, assembled MPs and representatives of human rights organisations, we've been to number 10 Downing Street, we've presented to number 10 Downing Street for the Prime Minister a letter with a copy of the petition that's been signed by over 100,000 people now. What the letter is saying is aware of the government's over a period of time intervention in seeking to influence the Indian government to abolish capital punishment. We're asking for a renewed effort by this government to do all it can to persuade the Indian government now to sign up to the international conventions against the death penalty and to address other human rights abuses. This is a community campaign, but as MPs, on behalf of the committee, we're presenting the petition to number 10, urging the Prime Minister to intervene personally.
Thank you very much. Your comments, please.
Well, as John has rightly said, it's been the policy of British governments to oppose the death penalty everywhere in the world, including in discussions with the Indian government. And this is a further step towards putting pressure in order to try and bring that about. There's been campaigns about individual cases, but this is very much tying in with the overall case against the death penalty, but also dealing with issues of concern dating back over nearly 30 years, back to the emergency as well, and subsequent periods, in order that justice is achieved.
Kesri Lehar strongly believes that when the justice is denied for years, it's the time for people to get involved. Seema ji.
Haji Sat Sri Akal. I'm very pleased to be here with fellow MPs. The Kesri Lehar campaign has been based in my constituency, and it has been a wonderful grassroots campaign on an issue of tremendous principle in politics. I have always been against the death penalty, and I think to say that actually we should see the death penalty be abolished in many more countries around the world, and to see what India can now do to think about its own future is incredibly important. And I'm very pleased with the number of people that have signed the petition, and honoured to be able to present that with John McDonnell and other MPs today.
Thank you very much. Delivering death does not mean delivering justice. Your comments, please.
No, but that's why this campaign is so important, and I want to congratulate the community in Kesri Lehar for the work that they've done in bringing this to the public view, especially before members of Parliament. It's really, really important that as the lawmakers we show our influence and our determination that the death penalty be abolished in India and in other countries throughout the world, especially India, with whom we have a very close relationship, and that this should not be used as a weapon against the Sikh community of Punjab.
That's great. Thank you very much. Hello.
My view has always been that the reason why human rights are international is that we internationally have a responsibility to uphold human rights around the world. And the most fundamental right is the right to life. And those states, like India, which execute their citizens in the name of justice, are actually denying their citizens basic human rights.
That's great. Thank you very much.
I am here to show my solidarity as a Christian for all the human rights, especially in India. Whatever is done regarding death penalty against Sikh people, I want and request the Indian government straightway to abolish this law and accept the human rights dignity everywhere to promote life and give life to each and every human being. Thank you.
There is no justification for killing thousands of innocent people and not delivering justice, not for days, months, years, decades. Here is the voice of Khalsa, Fauja Singh ji.
ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ 40 ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਜੇਲ੍ਹਾਂ 'ਚ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਛੁਡਾਉਣ ਫਿਰ ਫਾਂਸੀ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਮਾਫ ਆ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਮੁਲਕਾਂ 'ਚ ਮਾਫ ਕਰਨ ਫਿਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੋਰ ਬੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਆ ਜੇਲ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਡਾ ਰਾਜਵਾਨੀਆਂ ਹੋਰ ਬੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਛੁਡਾਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਤਾਂ ਖਿਆਲ ਇਹ ਆ ਫਾਂਸੀ ਮਾਫ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਇਸ ਮੁਲਕ 'ਚ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਮੁਲਕਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ
ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਜੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ
From Liberation. Liberation has always supported the rights, human rights of the Indian people, and we have been campaigning since 1998 for justice and human rights, and we continue to campaign in the UN, but up to now we haven't succeeded, but we are determined to go on and fight for all the people in India who are fighting for their human rights, including the Sikhs, including the Dalits and many others. Thank you.
We have people's momentum with you. I'm very sure we will succeed this time. Thank you very much. It's done.
Get out of your way.
Firstly, I'd like to congratulate everybody involved in the campaign, MPs, all communities that have been involved in the campaign. It's been a highly successful campaign with over 118,000 people who have signed. I'd like to thank all the Sangha for the hard work, but again, this is only the first part of the whole process and it covers all communities, so please let everybody know.
That's right. Thank you very much for representing the peoples within the Kesri Lehar. Dan from Amnesty International, your views about this campaign, please.
Very specifically, I'm particularly pleased to be here from Amnesty International relating to the death penalty and this element of the campaign that's campaigning against the death penalty in India. Amnesty is totally opposed to the death penalty all over the world and is pleased to join the delegation on that purpose. My glasses have fallen off.
Thank you very much.
Very embarrassing.
It's okay, never mind, thank you.
Okay, I'm inspired by the Kesri Lehar movement as it is people's movement and everybody worked as a team and grassroots inspired to get justice and redress for the people who have been suffering for 30 years. So I joined it and it's great that ordinary people, old, young, women and men, they joined it. It doesn't teach any ideology or religion. It is people's movement and it is going to be successful. We will not wait till we get justice and redress. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much.
So I'm really pleased to see that not only Sikhs are gathered here at this event today, but also got people who believe in human rights. They are from different parts community in the UK. Not only Sikhs, you got Muslims as well, you got Christians as well, and so we're gonna speak to the people and see how they feel and why they come and where they come from. So ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਜੀ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਆਏ ਹੋ ਜੀ?
ਅਸੀਂ ਕਵੰਟਰੀ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ ਤੋਂ ਆਏ ਆ।
ਇੰਨੀ ਦੂਰ ਤੁਰ ਕੇ ਆਏ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਾਲ ਥੋੜੇ ਕਿੰਨੇ
ਤੁਰ ਕੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਏ, ਅਸੀਂ ਕੋਚ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਏ ਹਾਂ ਜੀ।
ਕਿੰਨਾ ਜੱਥਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਇਆ?
ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੀ ਅਸੀਂ 50 ਬੰਦੇ ਆ। ਹਾਂਜੀ ਕਵੰਟਰੀ ਤੋਂ।
ਤਾਂ ਕੰਮਕਾਰ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਅੱਜ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਲੱਗਾ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇੱਥੇ ਪਹੁੰਚਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ, ਕਿਉਂ ਜੀ?
ਇੱਦਾਂ ਜੀ ਸਾਡਾ ਫਰਜ਼ ਬਣਦਾ ਸੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਉਣਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਹਿਊਮਨ ਰਾਈਟ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਗੱਲ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਆ। ਕੋਈ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹਿਊਮਨ ਰਾਈਟ ਟੋਟਲੀ ਵਾਇਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਹਿਊਮਨ ਰਾਈਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲ ਰਹੀ। ਕਦੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ, ਉੱਥੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਐਥਨਿਕ ਮਾਈਨੋਰਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਹਿਊਮਨ ਰਾਈਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ। ਔਰ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਐਮਸੀ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਰੈੱਡ ਕਰਾਸ ਆ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਹਾਲੇ ਤੱਕ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਨੇ ਅਲਾਉਡ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਟੂ ਫਾਈਂਡ ਆਊਟ ਦ ਫੈਕਟਸ ਦੈਮਸੈਲਫ। ਕਿ ਜੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਕੋਈ ਇਤਰਾਜ਼ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਹੈ, ਕਿਉਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾਣ ਦਿੰਦੀ?
ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਸੰਦ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਸਿਰਫ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਲਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, ਬਾਕੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਅਸੀਂ। ਹਾਂਜੀ ਹਾਂ,
ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਦੇਖੋ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਘੱਟ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਦੇ ਲੋਕ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ, ਚਾਹੇ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਆ, ਚਾਹੇ ਈਸਾਈ ਆ, ਚਾਹੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਭਰਾ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ 28 ਸਾਲ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਆ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਜੋ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਜੋ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਜੋ ਹਾਲੇ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਾਤ ਦਿਨ। ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਆ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਜਾਏ ਸਾਡੇ ਬਜ਼ੁਰਗਾਂ ਨੂੰ 93 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਸੂਰ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ, ਕੋਈ ਜਸਟੀਫਿਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੈਦਾਂ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ।
ਅੱਜ ਤੁਸੀਂ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਉਮੀਦ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ?
ਅਸੀਂ ਉਮੀਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਦੀ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੇਸੀ ਆ ਇੰਗਲੈਂਡ ਦੀ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਸ ਵਨ ਆਫ ਦ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਟਰੂ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੇਸੀ ਹੈ ਇੱਥੇ।
ਯੂ ਬਿਲੀਵ ਇਨ ਦੈਟ?
ਆਈ ਡੂ ਬਿਲੀਵ ਇਨ ਇਟ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਸ ਮੁਲਕ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ 52 ਸਾਲ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਆ। ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਲਈ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਬਰਾਬਰ ਆ। ਸਾਡੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਲਈ ਵੀ ਉਹੀ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਆ ਅਤੇ ਦੂਜਿਆਂ ਲਈ ਵੀ ਉਹੀ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਹੈਗਾ। ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉੱਥੇ ਡਬਲ ਸਟੈਂਡਰਡ ਆ। ਇੱਕ ਲਈ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਕੁਛ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ, ਦੂਜਿਆਂ ਲਈ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਕੁਛ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ। ਜੋ ਕੁਛ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਇਆ 28 ਸਾਲ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਆ। ਹਜ਼ਾਰਾਂ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਤਲੇਆਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਕਰਵਾਇਆ ਕਿਹਨੇ ਆ? ਉੱਥੇ ਦੇ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਨੇ ਕਰਵਾਇਆ। ਔਰ ਹਾਲੇ ਤੱਕ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਸਾਡੇ ਵੀਡੀਓਜ਼ ਉਹਦੇ ਰੁਲਦੇ ਫਿਰਦੇ ਆ, ਸਾਡੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਉਹਦੇ ਜੇਲ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ। ਅਸੀਂ ਮੰਗ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਦੀ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਤੋਂ, ਡੇਵਿਡ ਕੈਮਰਨ ਤੋਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੈਬਨਿਟ ਤੋਂ, ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੀ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ 'ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ਼ਰ ਪਾਓ। ਇੱਕ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਹੀ ਨਾ ਦੇਖੋ, ਹਿਊਮਨ ਰਾਈਟ ਵੀ ਦੇਖੋ ਕਿ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੀ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਹਿਊਮਨ ਰਾਈਟ ਵਾਇਲੇਟ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਆ। ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਕੋਈ ਹਾਈਡ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਨਹੀਂ, ਦੇ ਸ਼ੁੱਡ ਸੈਂਡ ਐਮਨਿਸਟੀ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਐਂਡ ਦ ਰੈੱਡ ਕਰਾਸ ਦੈਟ ਟੂ ਫਾਈਂਡ ਆਊਟ ਦ ਫੈਕਟ ਦੈਮਸੈਲਫ। ਦੈਟਸ ਵਾਟ ਆਈ ਵੁੱਡ ਲਾਈਕ ਟੂ ਸੇ। ਸਾਰੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਭਰਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਏ ਆ। ਅਸੀਂ 28 ਸਾਲ ਤੋਂ ਇਹੀ ਰਿਕੁਐਸਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਮਿਲਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਔਰ ਦੂਜੀਆਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਮਿਲਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਕਿ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਵੀ ਵਨ ਆਫ ਦ ਬਿਗੇਸਟ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੇਸੀ ਇਨ ਦ ਵਰਲਡ, ਪਰ ਉਹ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ। ਨਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਹੀ ਆ, ਉੱਥੇ ਕੋਈ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੇਸੀ ਨਹੀਂ, ਉੱਥੇ ਧੱਕੇਸ਼ਾਹੀ ਆ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ।
special invited guest, Baba Dadwalji from Punjab, who has been arrested. In fact, is becoming a habitual thing, a systematic thing. Each week, if not each week, each month he is arrested. He will give testimony here. We'll have testimony from people from Delhi. We will have testimony from our own director of Sangat Television, who was there in Delhi in 1984. Now he will tell you firsthand. We have people who have studied the subject. We have people who have raw pain, and it's that which we want to capture. We've got Amnesty International, Kim Manning coming later on. With much further ado, I'm going to pass it over to our most respected MP, John MacDonald, to chair the meeting. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you, downward for everyone who's come today. There are a number of MPs who will be coming and going to this meeting that we'll invite to say a few words because they have other commitments, so it's important that we try and give them the opportunity to speak. Then, as has been said, there are other speakers from other organisations that wish to express their views in terms of their own organisation's policies. Let's be very clear why we're here. We're here because we've been raising the issue now for a considerable period of time about the Indian government's adherence to the implementation of the death penalty and the abuse of human rights. We've tried now over a number of years to exert our influence as a community, but what we've done with the Kesri Lehar petition, the Wave of Justice petition now, is to petition the UK government to exert its influence on the Indian government, simply to say we want the Indian government to join that community of nations that have signed now the international conventions against the implementation of the death penalty, and to abolish it once and for all. We raised in July in Parliament with ministers the issue of the death penalty, but also we highlighted the incidences of the detentions and actually the deaths in custody that have taken place within India as well, right the way across communities, whether it's Dalits, whether it's Punjabi Sikhs, or whether it's been others. This is a human rights abuse on a significant scale that we wanted to expose and express our concerns about. The key thing about today's meeting is that this is a community campaign that's been focused on MPs and government now to do their piece. We have a number of MPs who have consistently supported us throughout this campaign, who will be speaking and dropping in to give their support today. But our focus now is upon the UK government, now to use its influence on the Indian government to persuade them now is the time. Now is the time to end the death penalty once and for all. And now is the time to address these human rights abuses. Okay? I'll introduce the individual MPs and then we'll go through the other list of speakers as well. Because of the filming, we want the MPs and others to speak from this seat, if that's okay. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. John Speller is our first speaker.
Fine, well, thank you very much, John. And John and I have been very much involved in these community issues, really since we were both elected to Parliament in 1992, and been involved in raising the cases of abuses of human rights during the emergency and subsequently, and much more recently, the question of the possible execution of Balwant Singh, and a big campaign right the way across the community, and one in which also featured here in Parliament. And I think it clear that that was heard in the Indian government, as they have held back. Governments are sensitive to these pressures, and that's why it was a real pleasure today to be with John and Seema Malhotra and other MPs in order to present the petition at number 10 Downing Street to highlight this issue. There's a considerable number of signatures already, many more coming in, and I hope today's meeting will be part of the campaign to get more signatures on that petition to, as John says, persuade the British government to use its influence. It's active in campaigning in the international community over the death penalty with a number of countries, and I think they need to be exerting themselves in order to make the argument to the Indian government, particularly as the Indian government is seeking to be a member of the Security Council, making that argument that they ought to be following the higher international standards, and one which more and more countries are adopting. And that's why it's very good today, both at the presentation of the petition and here today, to see other organisations that have been concerned with human rights over a long period of time. Amnesty International, for example, who on a number of occasions have sought to undertake investigations in India in order to investigate abuses of human rights, and have been pushed back, but that has not stopped them from campaigning on these issues. I realise that this has seemed very much like a long road, particularly for many in the community, some of whom who suffered individually, many of whom whose relatives suffered. And probably the worst cases of all, I always think, are, awful though they are the cases of those who were badly treated, even of those who died. But the worst cases are those who were disappeared, those for whom the families have never had closure, never knew what happened to their loved ones. And that is an issue that is still going on and needs resolution so that they can finally have peace and know what happened to their loved ones, and ultimately, hopefully also, bring others to justice for their fate. So it has been a long campaign, but at the same time it has been an increasingly successful campaign, and I think that the very widespread concern over the possible executions showed that there was really strong international concern, not just in the UK, but in many other countries. We were only a small part of that, but I think it has shown that there is deep concern, not just in the Sikh community, but those who are more widely concerned about for human rights. And that is why it is, well, I was going to say a pleasure. It is good to be with you and good to work with yourselves. But at the same time, also, it has been a long haul, and we want to finally see this being brought to a successful conclusion. Thank you very much for your time. I think we're moving between the two meetings here, but and other MPs will be coming in. But it's a campaign that has been well worth fighting, and your contribution has been very much understood here in Parliament.
We're doing a rolling meeting here because the next room is filling up with people. So I'm going to ask speakers, I'm going to take them next door as well, so they can speak to people there, okay? Our next speaker is Pat McFadden MP, who's been with us on this journey since he was elected to Parliament on this lobby around human rights and the issue around the death penalty. Pat McFadden.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Friends, I'm very glad to be able to be with you today when you come to Parliament and to number 10 Downing Street to make a very important and in the end a very simple point. And that point is to urge the UK government to use whatever influence it may have to urge the government of India to cease from using the death penalty. This is something I'm very happy to support and have supported a number of times in letters to ministers on behalf of constituents who've come to me to raise cases of individuals who've been sentenced to death in India. And as I always say, I don't put myself in the position of being the judge and jury, but I know one thing is clear, which is we do not use the death penalty here in the UK. Fewer countries around the world are using the death penalty compared to many years ago. And I think the UK, having ceased using the death penalty some decades ago, should use its international influence to try to persuade other countries, including India, to do so. And that's, I'm very, very clear on that. This is the latest lobby in a number which have taken place over the years on issues of concern to the Sikh community. Just a matter of weeks ago, we had a lobby to launch the exhibition about the events of 1984, which is touring different parts of the country at the moment. And I think, and I'm sure we'll hear it today, on that evening it was clear the raw emotion and the terrible grief that still exists in the Sikh community over the events of that time. And I think that that grief is compounded by an immense frustration at the lack of full and complete investigation of the facts of what happened and full transparency about what happened and who was responsible. And although there have been a number of commissions, I don't think anybody feels that those commissions have really got to the root of what happened at that time. And I know that, you know, in my own constituency, I represent Wolverhampton South East, and I have the honour of representing many thousands of Sikh constituents. And there are some friends from Wolverhampton with us in the room today. I know that in the community that I represent, that grief and that frustration is felt very, very strongly indeed. And I just want to assure you that that's something, as an MP representing that community, that I very much understand. So I just want to close by saying that the point about the death penalty is really quite a simple one, is that we want countries to desist from using this, to strike it out from the armoury of weapons available in the criminal justice system in countries. And I hope that we can persuade the UK government through the petition signed today and through other pressure, through the letters from MPs that I've sent and my colleagues have sent, to use their influence in that regard. So thank you for inviting me to be with you today, to speak to you and let you know where I stand on this issue. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thank you, Pat. As always, you've been a great supporter of the Punjabis and the Wolverhampton South East constituents. You can meet Pat in room number 14. And we hope that you can be with us when we hopefully invoke the debate in January in Parliament with this, and we'd love your support. And we got yet another MP, Leicester South, Jonathan Ashworth, another large Punjabi community, and it's great how the campaign of grassroots people is taking effect and how our MPs are actually feeling our concerns. So without much to do, thank you very much. Please.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to speak. I wasn't expecting to speak, but it's, I'm delighted to have this opportunity, and I'm pleased to see that there are so many people here supporting this campaign, and I'm especially pleased that there are good friends and colleagues from Leicester here as well. I can see you at the back taking photos and so on. Look, I'm a strong believer in justice and human rights, and I'm a stronger believer that when we see injustices across the world and when we see human rights not being implemented across the world, we have to take a stance. So not only is this the right thing to do, this is about justice and human rights also. And even if I was a member of Parliament who didn't represent a city of such diversity, who didn't represent a city with such a significant community as this, then I would still be taking this stance, because this is about justice and human rights. So, we all know the United Kingdom has long historical ties with India. We all know that although we are a relatively small nation in the globe, we are a nation whose voice is often heard by countries such as India. That's why it's so important that the campaign, that the petitions continue, that members of Parliament such as myself and John and the other John and Pat continue to make this case to our ministers, and that the UK government, through its international forums, puts as much pressure on India that the death penalty has to be abolished and human rights abuses have to stop. I don't need to repeat everything that's already been said. Pat and the two Johns have spoken incredibly eloquently, and I don't really need to add much to it. I think you can see where we're all coming from. But the key thing is, after today, when we all go home back to Leicester or Wolverhampton or whatever it is, we cannot give up. We've got to keep on with this campaign. Your members of Parliament will keep on with this campaign, because this is about justice and this is about human rights. So that's why we can never stop what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan, and yes, thank you very much for your time. We know all the MPs are busy, extremely busy, and they've been given such short notice, so thank you again. You did say, talk about injustice and diversity, and it's not restricted to the death penalty. We have our friends, the voice of Dalits International, and the next speaker I would like to introduce, Eugene Kulas, and he will tell you more about his organisation. Over 300 million Dalits and the oppressive regime, the systematic abuse of the people it's my concern, it's your concern, it's our concern. So I'm pleased to welcome our friend Eugene Kullis, representing the Dalits. It's a very large organisation, and I'm very proud to say the patron of this organisation is the Pope himself. So it's an influential group, a well-recognised and respected group. Pleased to have you here, Eugene.
Thank you very much. I am very pleased to be here, especially when you are talking about injustice. Injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. Injustice to anybody is injustice to everybody. So from that angle, I am representing a section of people from South Asia, particularly from India, who constitute 85% of the population. They are called historically broken people. 25% of them are acutely victimized, acutely suffering from caste discrimination. You know that caste has been in our continents for the last 3,000 years, and till 1947, caste has been the law of our country. And though a new constitution came, our general mindset is still in the previous primitive stage. I am very intrigued with this publication of some Sikh. It is not mentioned who, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ke Fateh. And it says, we have embraced Sikhism and we are following the Guru's path which reaches to God. We need to practice all Guru's teachings and we all need to abolish the caste system. There is no high caste or low caste, everyone is equal. We must practice Sikhism with sincerity by always remembering what our Gurus said and taught us. And here also it says, Singh and Kaur was given to Sikh men and women by Guru Gobind Singh Ji, so that no one can distinguish anyone's caste and so that everyone would be equal. I am very much fascinated with this. And I also appreciate the Singh. Singh is lion. Lion in the forest will not kill any animals unnecessarily. Only if it is need for prey, when it is hungry, they kill. So, Sikh issue has come to the limelight. So also you have shown generosity to include the issue of caste discrimination, the Dalits, who form 1/3 of the global poor. You know, when you ask for our request to be heard in the British Parliament, this British Parliament has already passed this law of Single Equality Act, wherein Section 9(5)(a) says caste is an aspect of race and it needs to be implemented. It is a protected characteristic provided an executive order is made. The previous parliament has made it, and this parliament, this executive order is still not coming forth. I don't know why. They form 1/3 of the global poor. 400 million people in India alone are under the poverty line. And DFID has explained caste like this. Caste causes poverty and gets in the way of poverty reduction. It causes poverty of a particular people, leading to high rate of poverty among the affected people. It reduces the productive capacity and poverty reduction of a society as a whole. It deprives people of choices and opportunities to escape from poverty and denies them voice to claim their right. What else explanation do we need about caste and poverty? It's already there. This British Parliament, it is a parliament of parliaments, mother of parliaments, and it is carrying a high weight in the international community, and every epoch of history has been geared or shaped by ideologies, values, and this new modern world is shaped by the ideologies, values given by British society. Democracy, justice, human rights, equality, integration, inclusion. All these words, these all have come from UK, and we need to work together. And I am very happy that you have given me the opportunity to raise the issue of the Dalits, who form 1/3 of the global poor and more than 400 million people in India alone. So let us, like the Singh protects the animals in the forest, you also take us with you and let us, together we'll make a big number, and we'll ask the UK government and society to do justice to this issue also. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Southeast. That's very kind of you. And of course in Wolverhampton, for many years I had the largest Gurdwara in the country. Unfortunately, we've lost that claim now because there's a new Gurdwara been built, and that's superseded the one that we had in Wolverhampton. But I'm very pleased to be here with you. You can't resist the invitation from my good friend Iqbal, who rang me and said that this was happening today, and he expressed the hope that I would come and see you. And of course I did that willingly because I represented Wolverhampton, a very large community in Wolverhampton, our Sikh community, and I was always very proud to represent our Sikh community in Wolverhampton. As I'm very proud to be here with you today, just to say a few words in support of the petition that you've presented, and it's a great acknowledgement, really, of the strength of feeling that lies behind a great deal of the injustices that you are campaigning about, and to achieve this majestic number of signatures that now demands a debate here in the House of Commons, in this Palace of Westminster. You're going to be able to achieve that, and that's very important for democracy. And I'm aware of the many issues that are going to be raised within this broad ambit of protection of human rights, and a campaign on behalf of not just the Sikh community, but of many, many minority communities that are seeking to bring into the public domain a great deal of the injustices that are currently taking place. So I'll be happy to be part of that campaign. I'll be happy to be part of the great debate that we're going to have as a result of this petition. And I'm very, very pleased to be here with you today to identify with the cause that you are articulating, and let's hope out of that we bring about the benefits that we seek to achieve. The cause alone is worthy, and the next day brings the best. That's what William Morris told us many years ago. It's still true today, but we must fight for the causes that we believe in. And if we fight and we fight and we fight hard enough, then we can achieve what you are seeking in this humble petition that you presented to Downing Street today. I thank you for inviting me here. It's always lovely to see my old friend Iqbal and so many few of my friends here from Wolverhampton, as I can see today. But it's lovely to be amongst you, and I do wish you well in this campaign that we're fighting. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Lovely. A great big thank you to Lord Bilston. He's been a long-term friend of the Punjabis, and he's right, it is a humble petition, and it's together we're going to do it, and it's so great that it's not just members of the Commons, members of the Lords as well, together, and I always say we're making new friends, and it's great that you've been able to take the time out.
Thank you very much, and that's what we say. We go through life trying to make friends.
Excellent.
And that's what we shall do during this campaign. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you very much again. If you would like to meet Lord Bilston, again, he's going into room 14. Please, any ideas you have, anything you want to share, do share it with the MPs and the Lords. They're the ones that are going to be taking the campaign forward as it takes a political step forward. We have many friends here. We have Dan Jones from Amnesty. We have Maggie Bowden from Liberation. But I'm going to ask you to be a bit patient. I would like our friend Gurnam Singh, who's going to actually help to widen this the debate here. And I think Gurnam Singh is going to be talking about the death of democracy, and all the speakers that we're going to be inviting, the Punjabi Sikh speakers, they have a title for their speeches, 4-minute speeches, The Death of Democracy. It's not just about the abolition of the death penalty, it's not just about minority rights, there are many other issues. So, Veer Gurnam Singh, thank you very much. Take your time, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. Honourable MPs, friends, let me begin with the Sikh greeting, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. It seems the only time that the political system of India attracts any attention, scrutiny, is when there's a general election campaign. And that's every 4 years or so. India becomes billed as the world's largest democracy and a beacon of freedom and human suffrage. Whilst there's no such thing as a perfect democracy, I think we desperately need to reassess this popular myth, this wholly inaccurate idea of India as the world's largest democracy, not least because the failure to do so has, I believe, fomented Western apathy towards gross human rights abuses committed by the Indian Union, of which the case of Balwant Singh Rajwana is but the tip of the iceberg. Hannah Arendt, the Harvard political theorist and Holocaust survivor, identified 5 key features of a democracy. And each of these, I contend, is in serious peril in India today. Firstly, Arendt talks about transparency in government. In Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index for 2012, this is an organisation, India was ranked 94th out of 176 countries, being tied with Benin, Colombia, Djibouti, Mongolia and Senegal. Today in India, politicians are so powerful, they are looting the country. Now, these are not my words, but these are the words of Santosh Hedge, a former Supreme Court Justice of India, who said these words just 2 months ago in the New York Times. Freedom of speech and an independent media is the second principle of democracy. Whilst it is right, enshrined in Indian law, this right is there, the Indian Penal Code of 153 allowed a large set of exceptions against this principle, which are often used by corrupt politicians to silence public dissent. Moreover, increasing ownership and patronage of the media by powerful individuals and politicians in India, along with deep levels of corruption in the issuing of broadcasting licenses, has further compromised freedom of expression and independent media. Third, freedom of religion and belief. The reality is that across India, ethnic cleansing of religious minorities, most notably Sikhs, Muslims, Christians, also Dalits and landless peasants and slum dwellers, has been taking place on an industrial scale for many, many years. And I would not hesitate to say that Hindu fascist groups, the RSS, BJP, and others have now taken a stranglehold in that society, and that they have begun to undermine the very democratic principles that we all celebrate. Now, again, you don't have to take my word for it. Minister Pavan Kumar Bansal recently accused the BJP opposition of adopting fascist tactics. This is the Minister of Parliament. But tragically, the once staunchly secular Indian National Congress Party, again, has fallen from its principles. The Nanavati report into the massacre of Sikhs following the assassination of Indira Gandhi in 1984 has itself identified sectarianism amongst the Congress members. The report incriminated scores of ordinary Congress Party employees in systematic genocide, including senior members from Delhi, Mr. Bhagat, Jagdish Titler, Sajjan Kumar, and Kamal Nath, but to name 4. And far from being prosecuted, they have risen to the ranks of cabinet-level ministers. And fourthly, impartial courts and judiciary, putting aside numerous reports from Asia Watch, Amnesty International, the former Chief Justice of India, V.N. Khare, in a recent interview said that corruption in the lower criminal courts was rampant, and it was very difficult for the common man because there are huge time gaps between hearings and years are spent to get the order from the lower courts into the higher courts. And lastly, an honest and transparent voting system. This is absolutely crucial for democracy. Today, elections are secured not through free and fair elections, but by bribing electorates through the distribution of alcohol, drugs and cash. We all know that from the Punjab, what happens. Yeah? And if that doesn't work, then threats against whole communities Whole villages, threats are made that we will devastate your village if you don't vote for X or Y. So just to round up then, when the President Prime Minister Manmohan Singh assumed office, we all had high hopes. We thought maybe the new spring is beginning and that he would introduce fundamental reforms. Whilst India has developed on the economic front, we all see that. Because entrenched interests have become even more powerful, tragically, this has failed to benefit ordinary people. So on this World Human Rights Day, I say there can be no more important cause for Western governments than to prevent the death of democracy in India. Failure to do so could make the Middle East look like a tea party in comparison. Today, rampant corruption has rendered the Indian government mute in relation to gross violations of human rights of religious minorities and Dalits in particular. Today, the so-called world's largest democracy is anything but that. In this mother of all parliaments, I would appeal to all those who believe in peace, justice and freedom. Tell the Indian government that if it wants to be taken seriously on the world stage, if it wants to secure a permanent seat in the UN, then it must change its ways. And that will mean abolishing the death penalty, the immediate release of all political prisoners from all communities, and an open and independent scrutiny of human rights from outside agencies. That's what I appeal for.
Thank you very much. I think before we have other speakers, I think we'll just create the case against the Indian state, the Union State's government, and then our guest speakers from Amnesty International. You can see the size of abuse, the strength of the speakers. And the next speaker is Bhuta Singh, who's an economics professor. And Bhuta Singh will look at the issues on how human rights are affected from the economic angle. So welcome, Bhuta Singh from Birmingham. Thank you for your time. And if you can just, I did have it written down. I'm sorry, I forgot the title of your speech.
Really, the title's not important, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Really, mine's more of a factual, what's happening, and everybody to make up their own mind of what they feel is going on. Now, economics is something that we've all talked about, and we know that India is the largest emerging economy. The biggest problem we've got at the moment is Punjab and other minority states with large minority populations aren't growing as fast. And you could say this is just simple economics. Maybe they haven't got the right product, they haven't got the right setup, the infrastructure. But there seems to be a neglect, maybe not a deliberate move by the Indian government to kind of oppress these particular minorities, but with the lack of investment, allowing just a generation, not employment, not to be created, is a key problem, and it's really having an impact. I mean, most influx of Indian immigrants outside of India, because there's no work in India, there is no investment, and that's just sheer neglect. We've got a dying agricultural industry and nothing's replacing it, and that's been going on for 20, 30 years. You could say, okay, they can't manage the budgets, they're not good at the economics, but there comes a point where they need to take responsibility, and it is just it becomes a form of oppression if it becomes unchecked. I would encourage the Indian government to look at that and seriously look at the issues where they're attracting direct foreign investment, they're investing in a better education system, the basic rights that we all take for granted. All of those other problems can be somehow housed under the fact that these people aren't getting jobs, they're not getting employment, they're not getting opportunity, so they're turning to drugs, other means, crime, or they're just emigrating out. And that's, realistically for me, that's the key problem. India's growing. It's not that they don't know how to grow an economy. They do it, and they do it really well. How are they neglecting, particularly minority states? It's a question worth posing. And really, I know it's short, and that's my only really bit. But thank you for taking the opportunity to listen to me. Thank you.
And we've all been reading the news, and I've said it at the beginning. A person, by Dadwalji, week in, week out, month on month in, you're taken by the police authorities, harassed, and if you can tell us, Punjabi de vich, and then I will ask Sarabjit Singh to translate it and also address the meeting here. And we have Amnesty International and Liberation and Punjabi Human Rights Internet, and they want to know, because they know the facts, but you have your chance to tell us about the voice of Punjab today and the turmoil it's in. ਹਾਂਜੀ ਵੀਰ ਜੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੋ ਕਿ ਆਪਣਾ ਅੱਜ ਤਸ਼ੱਦਦ ਕੀ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਜੋ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਉਹ ਦੱਸੋ